We have some more breaking news that we want to get to. This is exclusive reporting by NBC News. Officials telling us that Trump cabinet officials voted in 2018 to separate migrant children from their parents. Trump advisor Stephen Miller told the group, quote, "If we don't enforce this, it is the end of our country as we know it." NBC's Julia Ainsley, Jacob Soboroff, who have been following this story, broke this latest development. They both join us now. Julia, let me begin with you. What more do we know about this vote that went down and how it led to this policy?
Well, Jacob and I were able to do extensive reporting based on documents and people who were in this room about this really pivotal moment that happened in the Situation Room. There were 11 officials invited to this meeting. They were also allowed to bring along deputies. In the room, we understand that Stephen Miller got incredibly angry and pointed his frustration toward then DHS Secretary Kirstjen Nielsen. He said, "It is your fault that the zero tolerance policy announced by the Justice Department earlier hasn't been carried out," because he said the Justice Department stood ready to prosecute. DHS needed to be doing the separating so that any immigrants that crossed with young children would be separated for prosecution. Nielsen said there are simply not enough resources ready to do this across the agencies, and it would result in separation and possibly losing children in this incredibly chaotic and clogged system. Miller said, "Forget that. Forget logistics. Let's just put this to a vote." A sea of hands went up. Nielsen's was not among them. But seeing that she was outvoted within a number of days, she did sign the memo that resulted in what we know as zero tolerance. It separated 2,800 children. And Eamon, just to put a fine point on what happened in this meeting, it was here that we see Miller said that anyone who doesn't enforce this law is un-American. He was not someone who had been Senate confirmed to run the Department of Homeland Security, but his power here was able to reach and to put this policy into place. And we're able to see that through the documents and through people who sat in this room at this pivotal moment.
Jacob, you obviously have been covering this from the very beginning of the crisis, of the separation crisis. Connect the dots for us. What happened after that meeting that led to what you witnessed as a reporter in the cages, in the detention facilities across the country?
Well, what's extraordinary about this, Eamon, is we know the result. We know what happened. Physicians for Human Rights, the Nobel Peace Prize winning organization, says that the U.S. government and the Trump administration engaged in a systematic campaign of torture of these children. American Academy of Pediatrics says this was government-sanctioned child abuse. But the question remained was, how did we get to this point? And some of the names that were invited to be in that Situation Room are very familiar. Stephen Miller, Kirstjen Nielsen, Attorney General Jeff Sessions, but names that we haven't heard before associated with this policy. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, John Bolton. We're talking about some of the top leaders in the Trump administration invited to participate in this meeting, where ultimately it came down to a show of hands vote. And as Julia said, a sea of hands went up. And what I do want to say about this is that while Kirstjen Nielsen did express reservations about this policy, did put forward concerns that if they move forward at this time with the separation of children from their parents, it would become a logistical nightmare. Children could get lost in the system because they were not ready. Ultimately, she went back to her office. We reported in this story at the Ronald Reagan Building in Washington, D.C., after a conversation with Kevin McAleenan, then the head of Customs and Border Protection, and did sign a decision memo to move forward with this policy. And the result of that policy is one, obviously, that today we all know is going to have lifelong impacts, trauma on these thousands and thousands.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.